Welcome to Founder Unfiltered. Founder Unfiltered is about the psychological side of building, the part that doesn't make the highlight reel. My name is Bradley Jacobs. I'm your host, the founder and CEO of Mylance. Today's guest has led learning and leadership development at some of the biggest organizations in the world: Colgate, Wipro, Microsoft, Pepsi. He was the first chief learning officer at Wipro. He's written 6 books, has almost 1 million followers on LinkedIn, and right now he's one of the most interesting ideas I've come across in a long time. A word called hunar. It means something between mastery and artistry. We'll go deep into it on the episode today, but it's not about your skills or your title or your resume. It's what makes you irreplaceable in an AI world. Abhijit Bhaduri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I can't wait to get into it. So let's talk about your career for a second. I mean, you've held these senior roles at some of the most well-recognized companies in the world. Looking back, what was the through line in all of those roles? Or did it feel like, separate chapters that were only to be connected later?
It's a little bit of both because, in every new role that you get into, there are some learnings from your previous roles, which is cumulative, which you bring into the new role. But it's also that, you learn to discover different aspects which are unique to the role. And that's always there. Because if you look at it, while Pepsi and Colgate were, two different businesses, there was a lot of similarity. Both deal with a lot about consumers. But in case of Colgate, I got a chance not just to work in one country, but in 3 different countries. So that was a great piece of learning. Doing a global role was exciting. Doing a regional role was exciting. Microsoft, I worked with them in 2 different countries, which again gives you a tremendous perspective. So first a country view, and the second was in a global role, looking at a large number of employees, 230,000 employees. How do you design something which is going to be valid for 230,000 employees? So that was an exciting opportunity.
Amazing. And so after working at some of these big brand names, you've now for a few years gone out on your own. I'm curious about that transition. I'm always curious, having my own experience at Uber as well, and then going out on my own. What is it like to actually go out on your own without one of these big brand names behind you?
So, this is a interesting phase in my life because when I had been the chief learning officer for Wipro for about 7 years. And after that, I decided to, try the opportunity of being self-employed, started my own firm, hired a couple of people. We started to build this business. And that was one phase, and it was fabulous because we were working with some of the biggest names. We were very lucky that we got opportunities with quite a few of them. So of that, Microsoft was also a client, and then they invited me when they were rolling out AI. So before that, they needed to get the organization comfortable, the employees to start feeling that this technology was something they understood, they liked, they loved. And how do you build that? So that's when I came back again, after having been in Microsoft in my previous stint. I came back to join them as the head of learning and development worldwide. And in that role, the idea was to get people comfortable with this. After doing that for a couple of years, I decided to restart my firm. And, I've been doing my work again. So it's been multiple transitions. It's exciting. I mean, of course, when you have the branding of a large firm, which everyone knows, when you say you are working at Microsoft or Pepsi or Colgate, everybody knows those. But when you think about saying that, okay, this is who I sort of work for, this is my own firm, people say, well, never heard of that one. That is always the first challenge. But when you are working for yourself, I think you build your identity a lot more by your expertise, what you stand for, what you do, the unique way in which you do it. So not just what you do, but the way that you do it actually becomes way more important as compared to when you are working for somebody else. There, what you do becomes more important. Your business card matters. In this, the business card is not there. It's what you do and how you do it that's unique.
So on the topic of how you do it, let's bring back the concept of hunar. Like, when did this start coming up for you? How did you develop it? Like, tell us the origination story of when you realized that this, I need to put a title to this and I need to develop it.
So, the whole process of writing is that it's never one particular idea. You kind of, it happens in bits and pieces. So, a lot of it is triggered around my own experience of coaching different leaders. And then I've worked in talent development all my life. So, one of the things that you are constantly working with is what makes some people a lot more successful than the others. So, if you sort of really look at that, there are three elements that you need to segregate in this. The first one is that you talk about talent. Talent is really the something that you're born with. So think about when you are in early career in school. At that point of time, let's say when your classmates are learning the basics of the language, you are already reading books, much ahead of what you are doing, what the others are doing. Or you're an athlete, you're a natural athlete, or you're a natural singer. This natural element is what you're born with. That's talent. But what is different is the skill. So when the skill is visible, a skill can be taught, a skill can be benchmarked. So I can watch the way that you play tennis, I can pick up that skill. So I can do that. I can watch the way that you draw and I can teach myself, oh, okay, that's a nice little hack. I can do it this way. Remember that while talent gives you a head start, somebody who's working very long hours, puts in the grunt work, goes through the repetition, sharpens the craft and all of that, at some stage will overtake the one who's got natural talent. That's just how it works. So you'll find somebody who's not necessarily very good at something today will actually become really the world number one at that stage. And we have countless stories of that. Hunar is a little different. Hunar gives you the ability to bring in your life experiences, your unique relationship universe, your disappointments, your successes, the music you've been exposed to, the books that you've read, everything that you have brought into your life that has shaped who you are. You bring that into the work that you do. That's what gives it a unique flavor. So, hunar is a word which is, it's Persian origin, Hindi, Urdu uses this word a lot. It's different from talent or skill. Hunar is unique. Let me give you an example. We've seen Alfred Hitchcock's movies. He was called the master of suspense. He was called the master because he demonstrated suspense in a manner which stayed with people. Where did that come from? So the story goes that, when he was a little kid, his father actually, he must have done something, wrong, or may not have done what the father had told him to do. So the father played a small little trick, gave him a little envelope and said, walk across to that police station and give it to the gentleman sitting on the front desk. So little Alfred runs along to the police station, meets the person sitting at the desk, hands over the envelope. The man opens the envelope, reads the letter, gets hold of Alfred, takes him to a lockup, puts him there, shuts the door, leaves him there for about 10 minutes. During this time, Alfred Hitchcock experienced what it means to be really, truly afraid that, you're helpless, you can do nothing, it's inevitable, I'm doomed, all of that. He understood that. Of course, 10 minutes later, policeman came, pulled him out and said, well, your father wanted me to tell you what happens if you don't listen to people, etc., all of that. This incident was actually life altering for Alfred Hitchcock because it not only taught the person, what it means to be afraid, but it also built in him a lifelong hatred of authority figures. He was afraid and he hated them and he sort of did that. Now, this element he was able to bring into his movies. So if you see his most iconic work, if you see movies like Psycho or Birds and all of that, and many, many others, you will see that typically when you want to show suspense, you will show the threat object or the person walking towards you and, threatening and all of that. There is none of that. He tells you what's going to happen. He tells you. And then You are dying 100 deaths watching that story unfold. And mind you, in that film, Psycho, for example, the knife actually doesn't ever touch the skin. It's just in your imagination. You know what has happened. You know how it could have happened. So he's able to transfer the fear from his mind to the audiences. That is hunar. That is unique. So many others have tried to copy his craft. So they figure out how he takes the shot. Okay, 70 shots in that shower scene. You can copy that. But this ability to bring yourself inside, that gives you a unique flavor. Think about it like a painting, which you've not signed, but anybody who looks at that painting can immediately say, that has to be so and so artist. That painting can only be done by so and so artist. So, there are many people who have that. You can look at a Picasso's drawing and say, well, that style of cubism is very typically Picasso. Somebody else could have also used the same methodology, but there's only one name that comes to your mind when you see that. Or Dali, Salvador Dali, or another person. Many others. Roger Federer is a great example of this. So, hunar shows up in many ways.
As you describe it, there's almost a relief that I feel because it's easy to go to what happened to us, whether it's in our childhood or as an adult where we experienced heartbreak or traumas with we all have our fair share of traumas and right that have shaped us. And it's easy to think of, oh, there's something wrong with me and I need to overcome what happened to me. And what I'm hearing you say is it's made you who you are, and embracing who you are and everything that you've had to overcome to be who you are now, integrating that and bringing it through your business and your work and everything that makes you that is inherently unique. You don't need to try to be different. You are inherently different.
Very true. I mean, from a makeup point of view, you are unique, whether from the biological makeup point of view or the psychological makeup point of view. All of these things have impacted you completely differently. Even identical twins are not, absolutely the same because you react differently to the same simulation. When you think about that, it is this uniqueness which in today's economy, specifically, since we are talking about the world where there is artificial intelligence and we know that these are things that the machine can do. The machine can read, the machine can write. So AI can do all of that. So it can steal your skill. Of course it can. It's doing that, So if you know how to do accounting and you've done it after learning accounting for a while. The machine can do accounting just as well. I think the opportunity lies in the fact that you can see the machine's work and draw judgment about what should be done, the human side of it. Let me give you an example. Today, there's content available from the best of teachers that teaches you how to learn anything. You want to learn a language, you want to learn, how to draw, you can learn math, anything. The best of people have put that. And most of the times it's free and available. So why do we go to school? The role of the teacher is not content transfer. The role of the teacher is actually to inspire you, to make you believe that your limitations can be overcome. We've all had teachers who told you that, don't worry about this, you can do it, you will be able to overcome this. And that inspiration actually shapes the way that you respond. That is the real magic of what a human being can do. So this is something the machine can never replicate. The radiologist can look at, multiple x-rays and say, okay, this is malignant tumor and this one isn't. The machine can do that. But how to break that news to the patient, to the family, that is something only a human being can do. That is hunar, where you build your judgment, you build your understanding, you know that I think the person is ready to receive it now, or no, I should not share it today. That judgment, when you hold back, you hold it a little longer. That is where your hunar comes in. So the chef, I mean, today most recipes are available online. So why isn't everybody a Michelin star chef? Because the person brings in something extra. The way that you chop the vegetables, the way that you slice the thing, the way that you caramelize it, you hold it, a second longer, a little less, little more. all of that becomes your signature style.
It's such a perfect conversation to have in this world of AI where anybody can build anything right now. Your differentiator is not execution for sure, right? But if I can build a CRM and you can build a CRM and 1,000 million other people can build a CRM, the thing that makes my CRM different is everything we're talking about the user experience, how intuitive, how simple, how thoughtful, how it's built for a specific niche, the like everything about it outside of the basic execution of a CRM tracks pipeline, clients leads through a system, right? Everything else is what makes it special. And I think that's the opportunity. And we're going to have, when this is really embraced, I mean, I'd love your thoughts. We're going to have way better products.
Of course, because the industrial era was just the polar opposite. Now, think about it like this: the industrial era worked because everything had to be interchangeable. Your products had to be interchangeable. The human beings who were working on that assembly line, they had to be interchangeable, because if your skill was substantially better than mine, it would show up in the product being better. It actually needed to be at the same level. So if you are better, you had to tone it down to my level, and if I was worse, I had to bring it up to your level. And so the world of interchangeability was what drove all of us, which is why you see that we placed a great premium on things like benchmarking. We had benchmarks. You hire people against a standard, so you need to have 5 years of work experience, a degree in this, and 3 years in this industry. That's not valid because it's no longer credential led. I mean, what credentials do most people have when you say that I can use AI? What credentials do you have? Most people don't have any credentials. They know how to do it. So the world of interchangeability and credentials, and the fact that your identity is decided by the employer. So the employer decides that, okay, you are a manager, or you are a vice president, or you are a senior official. That's what really holds your identity. We're in a world where you decide, I can do this really well and I can't do it as well as you, are both unique elements that we bring to the work that we do. But what happens is we've all been trained to believe that interchangeability is it. You have to match benchmarks. And that is why you see the degree of mental health issues, etc., all of that comes in, because we just find it so hard to always strive to meet some invisible standard which always tells us we are not good enough. And today, actually, the way you think about hunar is that it's really that whatever you are, with your strengths, with your weaknesses, with your biases, with your experiences, all of it put together creates an output which is so uniquely yours. And to feel confident in sharing that with the rest of the world, that I think is the real opportunity. So I definitely think that we are in a very different world, and from having a frozen identity, we are in this world, we are actually talking about your identity, which is a lot more fluid. You can design it yourself. So it is really, that's the new world of opportunity. To be irreplaceable in this new world of work, you need to be unique. And so that's really what my next book is about. It's called A Identity. You with the AI, talking about how your identity is getting shaped in this new world of work. The only way you become irreplaceable is by being uniquely you and not meeting any benchmark. So the rules of the game are completely different.
As you talk, I can't help but think about the vulnerability that now comes with that, because I can't basically just go launch a product and have it be different than who I am. It's like who I am actually needs to be integrated in everything to do with the product so that it is differentiated. And there's an inherent vulnerability in doing that and having my essence come through my service, my product that I'm building, and everything in the way that my company is operating.
When you think about in the industrial world, I mean, most of the times you look at a job description. A job description makes no assumptions about how you can bring all of yourself into the role. And by all of myself, I mean who I am into the role. Let's take a very simple example. You talked about my being, as a chief learning officer at Wipro. So one of the things that I brought to the role was that I brought in this whole element of storytelling because I had written two works of fiction when I started my career. I'd written two works of fiction, so I understood storytelling. And when you think about how I brought that element into the work that people were doing, which was completely different, which was that they were in B2B sales. When you think about what that meant was, how do I bring this element into the work that I do, which is helping them understand the marketplace better, understand how to connect with the audience better, the customers they are selling to, and how do I do that in a manner which is creative? So I actually took the whole group to meet a bunch of writers. Who talk to them about how they approach stories. What is a story? What is all of that? Now we come back into the organization, and now when you start to say that, how do you tell this story? If you were a writer, how would that person write the story? Or they would actually talk about this incident and say, we had actually worked with this customer who didn't believe in doing this, and they were, facing this challenge. 12 days left. They were running out of cash. We were trying to run against the clock. We did this, and that's how we completed this task. This whole process is very different from a PowerPoint presentation where you're saying 30 million turnover, 20 million customers, 3 million this. Numbers don't mean anything. People don't buy numbers, they buy stories. They understand stories. That's what stays. So to do this, and this is now, of course, storytelling is so mainstream, it doesn't sound like something radical, but you got to understand. I'm talking of 2009 when I introduced this. Everybody said, but we don't really tell stories. We are serious people. We are selling IT services. Yes, but you can bring yourself in. So myself of being a storyteller, writing fiction, drawing, illustrating, all of that actually I bring into my work. So if you see my LinkedIn pages, all those illustrations, those cartoons, those caricatures, and all of that is something that I do myself because I bring that element into the work. So, and that is something that has helped me to connect with so many of my readers. That it's not just, the text, which they can get from anywhere else, but the unique perspective is also illustrated through the cartoon. Sometimes you can talk about something serious and do a funny side of it, so I can bring in the humor that I have into that cartoon. So it doesn't have to be a very serious illustration. It can be a cartoon. It can be the funny side of it. All of that actually becomes part of how you approach your craft.
I love it. I'm curious. You mentioned Roger Federer earlier, and as a tennis fan, I'm curious how that is an example of hunar in your story.
Well, the first thing is he didn't start off being a tennis player. He actually played a number of different sports. He was a runner. He had track and field experience. He played basketball. He played, he was a wrestler. He did many different things. And later on, when people would talk to him that you got into tennis much later, you were actually trying many other sports. And he said that all of them actually build the muscle that he had, his understanding, his strength, his vision, and all of that actually came from what he learned in many of the other sports. So that's a great example of hunar. When all those things that he did, they are not isolated events which is beyond the job description. You bring all of that in. So that was the first part. The impact of that is that when you look at all the other competitors that he played against, the major ones, whether it was Andre Agassi or whether it was Djokovic or Nadal, all of them said something pretty interesting. They said that he made us play a game which we never experienced while playing with anybody else. And there's of course this very famous photo of when Federer is retiring in the last game. Nadal is crying, and he's not embarrassed about it. He's crying. Typically when your competitor goes out of that arena, you heave a sigh of relief and say, "Good, I have one less person to worry about." Here is a scenario where his competitors are crying. They're saying, "We'll never get to play this game again." That is hunar. It's that signature which is so unmistakably yours. All these people have the skill. Remember, we said that, they are all talented people. They are naturally gifted. They have the skill. But when you come to the third level, that differentiator is hunar, because you bring that into the table, you will never be able to, unsee it. So you see a very different game. And you look at players like Mbappe, as we are recording this in the FIFA World Cup. You look at this person's skill is just different. And the way that they approach it. I mean, many of these players, everybody has the same skill without which you can't play the game. But you do something which everybody says this only this person can do. He's won the Golden Boot. Can he win the Golden Boot twice? That would be a great example of where it gets recognition. And he may or may not win it. That's not the point. It's not about the achievement, but it's about what he or she brings to the table as they practice the craft.
It's so interesting because there's an element of I want to go learn. Some of the best athletes, professionals, most successful people, they're lifelong learners. They're always reading and what can I learn from this person and that example and this failure and that success. And it can't be I'm trying to be someone else, right? They get to be married. It's like I can learn from the best, and I'm also going to bring my unique gifts to the world at the same time.
You learn from many people. You're bringing them, it's additive, and you put it, think about it, you put it into the processor, and it sort of gets meshed into and becomes part of your being. So it no longer remains in the shape and form that it came in as, so it's in that blender.
Yeah, exactly. In the blender. So I'm curious for the founder that is looking to really differentiate. Every founder has competition, right? There's no way, there's not a single business I know of that doesn't have competitors. And so how do people, if they're looking for like, oh, this is a really interesting concept of bringing my unique gifts through my product, through my service, but I don't know what it is. How do people go find it? Is there a practice? Can you go looking for it? Does it find you? How do you think about it?
So the first thing is, you do look at others and say that, if this person can do something better than me, what is the person doing? But having looked at that skill part of it, the skill you benchmark with others. But when you want to bring that in and turn it into your own signature, you have to bring your own uniqueness. And so, think about all the hobbies that you have. How do you bring those into the work that you do? Think about all the relationships that you have with people who have nothing to do with your profession, but they are people that you enjoy being with or who you've enjoyed watching. Think about the movies, the food that you like, the travel that you've had. Everything is added to who you are. So instead of looking at your work in isolation, in the work that I do when I coach founders, etc., all of that, the big piece that I help them do is to actually say, okay, how do you bring that element into what you do? Like, for example, one of the people that I am coaching now has seen extreme poverty, growing up and came from a very disadvantageous position. And it, so, when you think about it, you say, how has it changed the way that you think about money? Because no two people will think about money in exactly the same way, even though it's the same, $100 bill that you show. It means different things to different people. For somebody, it's an aspirational amount. For somebody, it could be something they spend on a dime. They can just do it without thinking. Everything means different things to different people. So to be aware of that and to start building that into the work that you do, into your relationships, and also in that organization, helping others discover that can be the biggest differentiator. Because today, when everybody is using AI, differentiation is hardly going to be in the product. It's not. It's going to be, plus minus a little bit of this. It's going to be the way that you build it, the way that you sell it to people, the way that people connect to you to buy it. That's where it's going to be different. So I think the opportunity is going to be, to operate in a world where you need to understand the human being a lot more. So the work that you are doing, Bradley, helping people look at the psychology behind the startup founder, or any entrepreneur for that matter. That is so incredibly precious because that's really where the competitive advantage will be.
You've had a lot of success on LinkedIn, obviously. And I know you've helped leaders and executives build their presence as well. What have you seen be effective on LinkedIn? You've obviously built up a massive following.
This is a tough question to answer because LinkedIn changes the algorithm periodically, like any platform does. I think you kind of you start to look at the one difference I would say is perhaps I look at the comments as something that I learn from. So when people write something which is not necessarily something positive, they would say, "No, this is not true. This is you didn't fact check it or something." It initially used to be offensive, but you stick to it and say, okay, how do I improve myself on this? And you reach a stage where the comments are actually helping you get better. So that's the first part of it. I also think that from the beginning, I kind of tried to put the content with my own examples, my own perspective. I would illustrate them. So in some sense, it is also the way that I think. So when I'm writing an article, for example, I actually do a illustration. So I create a little sketch, and that sketch gives me the way that I simplify the entire idea because it forces you to simplify. You can't write 500 words or 5,000 words on one sheet of paper, but you can sort of say, here are the four key takeaways on this, or three big takeaways. Here is how I'm blending it together. Oh, here is where I'm putting this particular example. I do a little cartoon or something. And when you build that together, yes, of course, when I'm going to post it, I'll add a little bit of color and do all of that. But essentially, it is going to be just simply that. So you bring that element in, I think, and when you post consistently, that's the other piece that, I've been doing it for many years now. So it sounds like, it just happened overnight. It hasn't. It's been over time. So the newsletter audience, if you see, I mean, that 280,000 or whatever is the number of subscribers actually happens because you are posting consistently, you are talking about things which matter to them. So I always think that how do I put something which the person can go back and use? If they've spent 5 minutes reading this, how do I make sure this 5 minutes is not wasted telling them how amazing I am? Instead, how do I talk to them about really saying, this is what you can do, this is what I learned, or this is what I have observed, this is what I've read, here is what I've heard, you might want to listen to this. In a number of conversations, you also talk to them about what aspect of that should they be looking at. So it's not like a blind forward. Help them leverage that. So when you're reading this, look at this aspect and here is how you can apply it. If you do that, I mean, those are things I have done. There are many others who are much more successful than I am, but I think this is really what I do, and this is how I have related to the audience. When they've asked me to change, I've tried to, live up to their expectations. But it's a strange mix. You kind of write for yourself to begin with because you write based on what you believe in. But you also write it in a manner which is understood by the other. So it's that bridge. You build the bridge between you and the reader.
We're going to wrap up here in a minute. I would love just for you to share what is the one thing you'd want a founder to walk away from this conversation?
I would think that the ability to bring your true self, in this world of AI, to actually leverage your A identity, that I think is the real essence, that you bring in everything that you have: strengths, weakness, opportunities, your relationships, not just your Rolodex and business network or LinkedIn network. It's just the people you've met in your life. What have you brought that into your work? All of that, I think, really shapes such a unique differentiator that it becomes impossible for somebody to recreate. So in this world of AI, do not operate in the way that you've operated, let's say, in the industrial era, where you've basically tried to be almost like somebody else, live up to a benchmark. It's time to actually be yourself because that's what is going to make you irreplaceable. And towards the end of the year, when the book hits the market, I hope you'll get a chance to read it and find ideas that you can leverage.
Yeah. Oh, so good. I love it. How can, if people are looking to find you, I know you're big on LinkedIn. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch or at a minimum follow your journey?
So I have my LinkedIn page, which is linkedin.com /in/ my name, Abhijit Bhaduri. So just look for me on that. There's a newsletter which I bring out almost every week or 10 days. That's a newsletter I normally talk about work, worker, and workplace as I see. These are my three obsessions. I read about that. My own website, abhijitbhaduri.com, is another place where you can reach out to me. It's all of that. So, and if you DM me, I respond to every one of them. So if you leave a comment, I respond to each one of them. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Amazing. Well, we'll put all the links in the show notes as well so people can easily find you. Abhijit, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your insights. Love getting a chance to talk to you and learned a lot myself from the conversation. So appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Bradley. It's been such an honor, such a privilege to talk to you. Thank you.